Next, we're talking about what's clean and what's green, and we're going to introduce you to Dr. Jeffrey DeCarlo. He leads the state aviation in Massachusetts as the Department of Transportation Aeronautics Administrator, in addition to directing capital programs at 35 public use airports. He also leads advanced air mobility programs, including infrastructure development that enables new, novel, green aircraft design to move people and cargo from locations previously unserved or underserved by aviation, filling a very important void there. Jeff has more than 30 years of executive leadership experience with the military, industry, academia, and government, and over 10,000 hours as a military and commercial pilot. Please welcome Jeff DeCarlo.
Thanks so much. Hello, everybody. What fun, okay, to be able to be invited. Thanks so much to the Katys. Both of them, I'll tell you what, they don't procrastinate, let me put it that way. So it's just such a pleasure. I'm going to talk about the SMART grant and tee up the SMART grant for Smart Microgrid, and then talk about the team, the vision, and maybe some thought leadership that we could lean on a little bit as we really think through what this project is going to look like. First, a little bit on the organization. The MassDOT Aeronautics Division is one of 4 divisions in the Commonwealth DOT, as well as we work hand in hand with the Massachusetts Bay Transit Authority that's under the auspices of the MassDOT Secretary of Transportation. We're divided into 2 groups. The Aviation and Airports group that's worked on a lot of the capital programs. We're also a regulator, but we're very much of an outreach and innovation organization as well. Because what we've found is that we've had the Wright brothers that were mentioned before, we've had the jet age, and now we're at a point of inflection where some really amazing things are necessary that have to happen as we move forward. The Advanced Aviation Technologies Group did not exist when I first arrived here in 2015, and now it's a huge part of our organization. And we're looking at a variety of different capabilities that are clean, green, equitable, and there's a lot of demands on our program. Keep in mind this particular map. So this is a map of all of the Commonwealth public use airports. 35 public use airports in the Commonwealth. There's also a bunch of private restricted landing areas, hospital heliports, a variety of other locations around the Commonwealth. But keep these in mind for, as I continue the presentation and start talking about the distribution across the Commonwealth of all these different types of these different airports. And, the responsibilities of the division, they're significant. Obviously safety is number 1, security of our airports and our airspace, accident investigation, navigation aids, and we also lead UAS and uncrewed aircraft systems and advanced air mobility for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So UAS, commonly known as drones, we fly a lot of operations with those, supporting the Commonwealth with inspection, asset management, incident response, and emergency management. But we also lead advanced air mobility, which is the movement of people and goods, with everything from drones right through larger vehicles. So it's quite an interesting thing. And also the economic impact of airports is huge. And so when we start looking at the amount of jobs, 200,000 jobs, and the actual total impact across the board, it's just humongous. So what we're really here to talk about is this SMART grant for Smart Microgrid. And winning this was a huge deal for us, and working with our partners at Cape Cod Airport, as well as with our Cape Cod Regional Transit Authority. So we're very, very excited about it. And Katie Service already mentioned this, but we were able to get a planning grant that is about $2 million that could lead to a phase 2 $15 million implementation plan. So we are hot in to making sure we tee up the best plan that we could possibly tee up. And we want to make sure it's open architected so that we can think about not only now, what's available now, the current state of the art, but the future state of the art. We want to make sure we have that open architecture. So the we really truly is, it's MassDOT Aeronautics working with Cape Cod Airport, as well as Cape Cod Gateway Airport, as well as the Cape Cod Regional Transit Authority. Not shown on this is AirUp, who won the RFR for the construction of this, and they're the prime contractor for the construction of the microgrid. And they have subs, including an energy company. In addition, what's not shown on here is our advisory support at MassDOT Aeronautics, which includes, we're going to be looking at the National Renewable Energy Lab, which is an organization that works with the Department of Energy, MIT Lincoln Laboratory that has a robust energy section, as well as subject matter experts that are really schooled on hydrogen and the potential use in the future. So the we is even more than shown on this page, but these were the prime stakeholders that set up and put all that work into that grant. Again, $2 million and looking at $15 million for implementation. So the SMART grant proposal, there was some constraints on the proposal itself, in that we had to really focus on surface transportation within our airport ecosystem and not aircraft that would fly in that we might end up utilizing electric charging, for instance, for, or hydrogen. So we were literally handcuffed in a way. So we really focused on what the specifics were for the grant request. But after we received the grant, advanced air mobility and the future novel green technologies became real as the FAA published Innovate 28, which is a recognition that advanced aviation with new novel clean green vehicles are here. And they're really part of our future. And there's going to be a variety of vehicles. So the form factor in the center there, you'll see a form factor of one type of vehicle that very often is electrically fueled and electrical motor vertical takeoff and landing vehicles. So they operate a lot like a helicopter would operate. Some of them are hydrogen fueled electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicles. Again, they're not in the news as much, but they truly happen. Innovate 28, where that comes from, is the LA Olympics are in 2028. And as with the Paris Olympics, this year, in Paris, in Ile-de-France, I've been there twice, they're going to actually be flying electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicles during that in a demonstration capacity with Volocopter, one of our interesting players. So the FAA has now recognized that these vehicles are real. So what we're doing is setting out a target for us, potentially in Massachusetts, if we can, to actually think about supporting the World Cup in 2026 with some demonstration flights with eVTOLs. And again, we got to make sure these aircraft are certified and ready to go. But we would love to be able to think about that potentially. Beyond these, around the kind of business that I'm in, you'll hear electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicles. Had anybody heard of Uber Elevate? So this was like, if you want to order an Uber, you just have an app on your phone, and these vehicles within an urban environment, you'd be able to pick one up at a designated location and fly to another location in the urban environment. That effort sort of fell to the wayside as, in a lot of cases with innovation, the timing on innovation tends to lag a bit. And in addition, the urban environment is more difficult with respect to air. But now when we start thinking about the full range of electric vertical takeoff and landing, serving a region, connecting transportation deserts in rural communities and things like that, that really makes a lot of sense. And we have different form factors. Electric short takeoff and landing vehicles with blown wings, and Dan Wolf is actually looking at electric conventionally takeoff and landing vehicles that are electrified and very interesting. The smart microgrid effort, it's really an amazing effort. It's to build that microgrid at Cape Cod Gateway Airport. So it's a smart grid plus a smart microgrid, and that would include the historically disadvantaged village in the town of Barnstable. So that was really a major part of it, of what we're trying to accomplish here. The effort will include the electrification of ground vehicles, aircraft, public transportation, buses, and will focus on regulating electrical load and generally independent power through solar and possibly wind, geothermal, and hydrogen. It will reduce greenhouse gas emissions and provide reliable, cost-effective power, which the airport and the underserved residents of Barnstable will benefit from. So we have some experience with this. Working with Beta Technologies, and again, I see Sam, I see a variety of the folks that are here from Beta, just a fantastic company. And we worked a lot with them. And the way that happened was, I received a telephone call about a week before I heard anything about Marshfield, and it was from somebody saying, hey, are you getting ready for this next generation of aviation and electrification of airports? And I was like, humana. Well, oh boy, we haven't really been thinking about it too much. And then I received a telephone call from Jeff Douglas at Marshfield Airport, grassroots effort. Hey, guess what? We're working with Beta Technologies and United Therapeutics and Eversource, and we need you to maybe come in and have a meeting with us, because Eversource is actually asking right now, what is advanced air mobility, right? Good question to ask. So we sat down literally within 30 minutes. They understood exactly what we're trying to do. And we were able to piggyback on a Massachusetts Clean Energy Center funding program for EVs that would allow us to run three-phase power a mile, right? So that was really, really important. And then Beta is a wonderful partner. In a true public-private partnership, they came in and took care of all the airside and landside investments that were required. So just really a super job. And, come to find out, Beta is, working with half a dozen or more of our airports in the Commonwealth. So just really, really happy about that. But it was a real team effort, and it took some time. And of course, there were some supply chain issues that happened during the pandemic timeframe. But we do have some experience with this. Another thing that happened in about 2018-19, the World Economic Forum worked with the city of Los Angeles, who've been thought leaders in working and moving forward and thinking about the next generation of aviation. And they came up with 7 principles of the urban sky. But these 7 principles are not just about urban sky. They're about literally thinking about the next generation and thinking about multimodal and thinking about clean, green, and equitable. That's really what these dimensions are about, these principles. Safety, number 1, sustainability, equity of access, low sound levels, multimodal connectivity, and local workforce development, huge. And I know John is here from Cape Cod Community College and a variety of other folks really thinking about workforce development and really making things happen in that regard. And purpose-driven data sharing, and that's super important to make sure that we have a really clean and timely trip for each individual passenger. So I was very fortunate to be selected as the inaugural chair for the World Economic Forum's Advanced and Urban Air Mobility Cities and Regions Coalition a few years ago. And, having met many, many people, traveled to several countries in that role, it was really excellent to share best practices and think about community integration and the like, but also being able to meet some of the real thought leaders. And there's a bit of a primer here airports of tomorrow, from passenger hubs to energy hubs. that can support the community in clean, green, equitable ways and actually support disadvantaged communities in large part. So, I mean, this thought leadership here, I think, is really, really important, and thinking about, you know, airports as potentially supporting the community holistically. And remember that map with the airports, how they're distributed around the Commonwealth. So, and I don't want to misspeak because Beta's here, but Marshfield Airport, actually we have, you know, that particular airport's charging system is used a lot by electric vehicles. And I think it's one of the top users, you know, in their system right now that they're utilizing. So the idea of having airports as energy hubs for communities is quite interesting. And certainly they can drive economic growth. And there's huge opportunities for diversification, green jobs, creation and industrialization, and educational opportunities. And this could help establish new organizations as well that might not be able to underwrite the cost of, you know, what it would amount to with respect to being clean, green, and innovative as we move forward. The electrification of the airport ecosystem is a huge part of what this sort of 5 ideas for airports, things that they could start thinking about and transitioning to, but thinking about holistically the electrification across the whole airport ecosystem is super, super important. And the right mix of energy solutions is one of the things we're trying to do with our SMART grant for a smart microgrid. So there's a lot of new phraseology around this. Has anyone here heard of energy vectors or energy demand aggregators? There's a lot of new thinking that we have to think about with respect to, or actually become part of our lexicon as we start thinking through, you know, the movement of energy appropriately and gathering that energy and sending it out to the communities that are in need. And then when we talk about airports as hydrogen hubs, so we actually have one airport in the Commonwealth that actually has hydrogen on premises, and they actually have a hydrogen-fueled electric vertical and takeoff and landing vehicle. We're very interested in the idea of producing hydrogen and utilizing hydrogen. And again, this is more of a future state of the art right now as we think through this, but we want to make sure that with our plan that we're open architected. We can also think about maybe producing through electrolyzers some hydrogen even now. And there's companies doing that even now. And one of them is right here in Massachusetts and doing some great work around that as well. Sustainable aviation fuel is in the conversation now, and it's very, very interesting. And so you will hear about sustainable aviation fuel as it becomes more in the mainstream in the East. So it's being used in the West Coast, and it's a mix of sustainable aviation fuel mixed in with fossil fuels. And so it's a good first step, right, to reducing the carbon footprint. So we're pretty excited about that. The energy efficiency best practices, we need to really to work on that. But when we think about the heating and cooling of buildings, and what will that look like? And you know, Lavelle actually talked about that earlier. It's going to require some really excellent thinking. Is it possible to retrofit an entire airport to a degree that makes sense? We'll see as we go forward. But we're really, really excited about that. And the potential for hydrogen in that regard is something we want to think about, including tidal generation of hydrogen, green hydrogen that can actually support our electricity requirements. So with that, I'm going to finish up now and say thank you. And I want to hand it over to, I was the ham, the egg is coming on right now to give you more of the nuts and bolts of what we're thinking about with respect to our smart microgrid. Thanks so much.
Next, I'd like to introduce you to Owen Silbaugh. He is the Chief Engineer and Director of Airport Engineering for MassDOT's Aeronautics Division. a graduate of Carnegie Mellon University and the University of Pittsburgh. Since moving to the greater Boston area, he has worked solely in aviation design, construction, and permitting projects in the New England region. At the MassDOT Aeronautics Division, Owen leads the engineering department and manages the capital improvement program, yearly paving maintenance program, the pavement condition index program, and design reviews for all construction projects. With MassDOT's Aeronautics Division's latest grant award from the US DOT SMART grant program, Owen is the project lead and principal investigator for the SMART Microgrid project right here at the Cape Cod Gateway Airport. Please join me in welcoming Owen.
So we heard a lot from Katie and we heard from Jeff today about the SMART Microgrid project. Sorry, moving on. So a little bit about the SMART grant program. It is funded by the US DOT. It's provided by the Office of the Secretary. There were 59 award recipients in the first round. That was in 2022, out of 392 applications. We were fortunate here in the Commonwealth to get 4 awards, 2 for the Aeronautics Division. Jeff may have alluded to the other one about there's a rail project with UAVs that he's working on with our Rail and Transit Division. And the average request for those grants was $1.5 million. And this is kind of the spread of where all of the grants were for the program. You can see there's a big cluster here in the Northeast, and the brown dots, which it might be hard to see, there's 3 microgrid projects here in the Northeast. So that says a lot about what we're trying to do, not only here on the Cape, but all of the Northeast with electrification. These are the 4 microgrid projects that were awarded by the US DOT, including our grant for $1.95 million. And then the other 2 were here, one in Maine, one in Mass, and then the other one was in Colorado. Part of the SMART grant program, and there's a lot of people here that there's a lot of opportunity for others to apply for these grants to help with your organizations through the US DOT. So whether you want to do connected vehicles, delivery logistics, work on sensors, system integration, innovative aviation, kind of what we're doing, smart grid, which is what I'm going to talk about in a few minutes, traffic signals, or even coordinated automation. Those are the 8 domain areas from the SMART program. And then here are the different types of grants that were given out as part of the first round of grants. So you can see there were 4 microgrid projects, some work zone safety projects, some international commerce, sensors was a big one. And so I just want to focus a little bit on what we're doing here. So Katie mentioned, so we're going to permit, plan, and do a preliminary design for a smart microgrid, and I will get into, for those, what a smart microgrid is in a second. In partnership with Katie and the Cape Cod Gateway Airport, the RTA, as well as Eversource. They're going to be a big partner in this because they are going to be helping us supply energy to the airport in times of need. During stage 1, we're going to progress the design to 30 to 50%, and depending on the timing of the closeout of the grant, hopefully, and funding, we can get to 90%. And one important thing to note, that we have a 15% disadvantaged business goal. So that means we're supporting disadvantaged businesses as part of this grant award with our design. So we're looking to model this for not only the Commonwealth, but also across the country to make our airports as these energy hubs, as Jeff had mentioned a minute ago. We want to develop reliable sources of energy here on the airport, so building solar over the parking lots and other areas that are unused. We want to generate power from geothermal, potentially hydrogen. Obviously, wind is a problem from the big turbine perspective, but if there is an opportunity to harness wind from a different perspective, we're looking at everything to produce green, clean power for this microgrid. We know that we probably will not be able to produce enough power here on the airport to make us an island, an energy island, so that's why we need that interconnectivity with the Eversource and the grid. And so Jeff mentioned also that we want to support electric bus charging, personal EV charging, TNCs, Uber, Lyft, rental cars, as well as all of the ground support equipment that not only the airlines use, but also the airport uses. And then if we have excess power, we will then help to power the airfield lights, the navigational aids, the weather systems, and all of the power in the buildings here on the airport. So here are some of the benefits to a smart microgrid. Sorry, just moving. It provides a more efficient way to provide the transmission of energy. If there is a power outage, there's a quicker restoration process back to get power back into the systems that need it. It can reduce operational cost and management cost. It helps to reduce the peak demand load that was spoken about during the panel. It helps to provide a quick power source for those quick turns that were mentioned by Dan that is necessary. So without having a power source right here that can be used immediately, that microgrid can put a lot of power back into the system and help those quick turns to make electric aviation more efficient. And then it can also improve security because you're controlling your power, not within the rest of the network. Here's a little example of our stage 1 grant. We received the award in March of 2023. It took some time to get the grant award from the US DOT. We put out a consultant RFR in July. We selected a consultant in September. Contracting took longer than we expected. So we finally started the project in November. And now we are between project start and the end of the period of performance, which is March of 2025, where we are going to do all of the planning, permitting, and design. And so some of the high level, oops, sorry. I'm moving my phone and not the clicker. Sorry about that. So some of the high level project tasks that we're trying to do, we're collecting the baseline data for the airport. So we know what their energy needs are. If we don't know what they use today, we don't know how to predict what they're going to use tomorrow. We're going to then use predictive modeling to figure out what their needs are going to be going forward with growth models that I think are, it's going to be difficult to figure that out. So we realize that we're going to try to develop short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals for the airport. And we don't believe that we can store enough power here, as I mentioned, long-term for the airport today. We hope to get to that, and we hope to make everything that we do expandable in the future. We want to create alternatives for the microgrid and the green power generation to produce as much power here on the airport as possible without jeopardizing land that could be used for future development. We want to analyze the green power alternatives, create cost estimates for capital planning. We don't believe that there's going to be enough money in the stage 2 grant that Jeff had mentioned to do everything we would like to do, so we need to figure out what those alternative funding sources are. We will update the airport's layout plan, and we will do all of the environmental coordination and assessments that are required in order to complete the project. And then in stage 2, if we do get that grant, it's up to $15 million. We hope that the notice of funding opportunity will be released in September of this year with a grant deadline in November. So hopefully by next spring, we will know if we got that grant and are able to proceed to stage 2. Any of the environmental permitting that was not completed in stage 1 will be completed. We will progress to final design, bidding, and construction of the facilities, at least a smart microgrid, and then secure interconnectivity agreements with Eversource and other final agreements from other end users that are necessary, and hopefully build some green power generation as part of that project. And then one of the other big things that's required as part of the SMART grant program is those partnerships. So, partnering with the RTA to make sure they have bus chargers here in the airport in the airlines so that they have the charging network that they need, but also working on workforce development. We need folks to operate all of these complicated systems, and we do not have enough skilled set out there. So part of our stage 2 grant is the partnership built to help build out that skilled network of the next generation of professionals to that we'll be able to work on these systems and keep them running. It's great that we put it all together, but if we have nobody to fix it, it's not going to be great for the future of all of this stuff. So that is a big key into the SMART program. And that's all I have. But if anybody needs any help from your communities, other cities and towns here on the Cape, and you want some help or advice or a planning session on how to submit a grant for SMART, please reach out to me and Jeff and the team, and we're here to help you however we can and give you advice on what made our project successful. So thank you very much.